How fast can Robert Saleh fix the 49ers defense? And Hall of Famer Steve Young has some play calling advice for Kyle Shanahan. Will he listen? We'll talk about it on today's Gold Standard podcast brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. What is good, everybody? Welcome to the original Gold Standard podcast on the Gold Standard and the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Rob Stats Guerrero. Your co-host is 11 Black. It is Wednesday, 11. How you doing today?
I'm good because it's a day off and I slept in. So
good. Maybe you won't be a complete jerk today.
Don't get your hopes up.
Yeah, that's what I figured. We got a lot to discuss on today's show. Of course, Robert Saleh is in the fold. I played a clip from Robert Saleh back when he was with the 49ers the first time. That has piqued Levin's interest. Just how quickly can Robert Saleh fix this defense? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Steve Young's play calling advice for Kyle Shanahan, which I thought was very interesting. Made it the subject of today's 49ers in 5. Plus a tweet from Grant Cohn that kind of like sparked a little controversy on Twitter that I think is kind of hilarious, but we'll get into all of it. Let's start with the Robert Saleh stuff. He is here, 11. He has a job to do that is not easy. His work is clearly cut out for him. The 49ers defense was not good last year. Eric Branch has an article in the San Francisco Chronicle all about how this is likely a one-year pit stop for Robert Saleh before he becomes a head coach again. So I think it's fair to ask, just how quickly and how much can he fix in 1 year?
I think the answer is, how much are the 49ers willing to spend? Because they have a lot of cap space. And it depends on whether they want to spend it to address the defense. Now, I think there are some very obvious things they should spend money on the offensive side of the ball. You got to address the offensive line. You're not going to be able to draft all that. I would like them to take an offensive tackle in the first round, but you still need to address a left guard, a center in free agency. You need to save some money there, and then also maybe a little bit here and there. Wouldn't mind getting another cheaper wide receiver with some upside, some speed. But most of it should be spent on defense. And if they do that, there is the options out there in free agency to make this defense great again.
Oh, God, here we go. So I was looking into this, trying to do some research for today. Eric Branch had a tremendous stat about the 49ers draft. According to Eric Branch, and this is correct, obviously, because I looked it up, 5 of the 49ers' 17 picks that they have had in the first, you know what? Let me say it in an easier way. The 49ers have had 17 picks in the first 4 rounds since 2021. They have only spent 5 of those 17 picks on defense. That is it. Early in the draft, they have chosen to invest in the offense. And if you're wondering, here are the 5 picks that the 49ers have made on defense in the first 4 rounds since 2021. Ambry Thomas in round 3. Dud. Drake Jackson in round 2. Dud. Jair Brown in round 3. Yeah. Renardo Green, round 2 last year. And Malik Mustafa, round 4 last year. That is it. Like, if you want to know why this defense has gone downhill, that is it, okay? They say, in politics, they say your budget reveals your priorities, right? Where you choose to spend your money reveals your priorities. Well, where you choose to spend your draft picks reveals your priorities also. And the Niners simply have not prioritized defense like they should since 2021.
Yeah, and you can argue that they've spent all their first-round picks on offense since then because they all went for Trey Lance. The last defensive first-round pick was Kinlaw, which was a dud.
And they took Ayuk in the first round that same year. So.
Yeah. But no, so this is going to be a numbers podcast. This is really what it boils down to. How can they fix the defense? Well, they need to bring in outside help. How much can they bring in? Well, the good news is they have a ton of cap space. So I dug into it a little bit. The 49ers, if you take Purdy out of it, because you should just eliminate Purdy from the salary cap because he's going to have a new contract. So that has to be accounted for. If you take him out of it, basically the 49ers have, out of their top 51, right at what the salary cap is projected to be. The NFL said the salary cap is likely to be between 265 and 275. So if you take the middle ground, it's 270. The Niners literally have like 269.9 accounted for already with dead cap and contracts that already exist. So they're dead even. However, they rolled over an NFL high $50.1 million. So that's their current cap space. But they can create, in very logical and likely scenarios, a lot more cap space. Fred Warner has a massive salary. If they turn that into a bonus like they usually do, it would represent $12.34 million in savings. George Kittle is the same way. I think George Kittle probably gets a new contract, but they could just do the shifting of the salary. That would save them 9.8. You got Leonard Floyd that's in the same boat. You can save almost $5 million. Gross Matos, I would do a post June 1st cut. If you did that, you save $7.8 million. And then you got, of course, Juice that has a 4.1 salary currently. If you converted that to the bonus, you can get another almost $2 million. If you add it all up, the Niners can get, assuming a salary cap of 270, about $88 million in salary cap space. So now you got to account for Purdy before you can know what you have to spend on free agents. Looking at Bosa to give a baseline, Bosa got almost $35 million per. His first year cap hit, though, is $11 million. If Purdy gets top of the market or close to it, you can nearly double that. Let's say $20 million first year cap hit. That gives the Niners, long story short, $68 million to spend if they choose to.
And I don't even know that they'll have the cap hit be that high, to be honest with you, in the first year. I mean, a lot depends on how they structure it.
Right.
But they'll have some flexibility. You're right about Warner. His cap hit is $29 million for 2025.
Yeah, and the salary is like 17.1, and that salary can be converted to the bonus. He has 2 years left on his deal plus 2 void years, so you can spread it out amongst the 4 remaining years.
So I agree. I think that'll be a restructure. I totally agree on the Kittle contract. You know, he had the tweet the other day. I don't know if you saw it. It was all John Lynch highlights. Did you see that?
I did not.
It was Instagram, or he put it out on social media, and it was just John Lynch absolutely murdering people. But, you know, that made me think that maybe there's a new contract in the works. Like, players don't just randomly throw that out there, you know, like he's not just randomly putting out John Lynch highlights. So hopefully that means a new contract for Kittle. He has 1000% earned it. He has made me eat my words because I didn't think he was going to finish his deal.
Agreed.
He's been unbelievable. You could argue he had his best year last year. So absolutely, he's fantastic. They've got flexibility. They've got things that they can do. Let me ask you this, though. We'll break this down by zones on the defense. How many new starters on the defensive line do you think they need to find this year?
I would say minimum of 1, preferably 2.
So, okay. How many new starters do you think they need to find in a linebacking core?
Minimum 1, preferably 2. Granted, they kind of only start 2. They kind of, you know what I mean? They don't really. Right. The third one is kind of there, but it's more of a backup kind of role.
If you're not in the base defense, you're not going to have 3 linebackers in the field. And more than most of the time, you're not in your base as a defense.
Right now, the 49ers have Warner, and that's it.
Right. How many starters do you think they need to find in the secondary this offseason?
I think they need to find a safety.
So 1.
You want to get you don't need a starter on cornerbacks, but I think you need some depth there. You need to spend a little money, but you're not going out and finding a starter. I'm fine with Renardo Green and Lenore as your starters.
Assume, like, take the third linebacker and the nickel corner and combine them into what you need a starter. Whether you're in base or nickel, whatever, you're going to need a starter. So that's, I mean, conservatively 4, but ideally 6 starters that you need on defense this year for this thing to get better. That is a super tall order for one off season.
It is, but there are some affordable players that you could address. And I went and looked at some of the free agents to get an idea of who's out there. I think they need an interior defensive lineman. I think that's the biggest need on the defense. I'm assuming Greenlaw comes back. I account for him in the free agency, but I think he comes back. But you got, for interior defensive lineman, DJ Jones is a free agent if they want to bring him back. Although DJ Jones said he really wants to come back to Denver and that he thinks they're starting something special there.
And they
So,
do have a good defense.
right. But you also have BJ Hill of the Bengals. I wouldn't mind him. You have, and I'm going to butcher some of these names because they are some of the hardest names in the entire NFL. From the Cowboys, you have the Osa. I think it was, I looked it up. It was Odi Gizawa. Odi Gizawa.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. He is a free agent. And I think even with everything that happened with the Cowboys, right? Terrible season. Teams weren't needing to pass nearly as much. The guy had 33 pressures and 23 QB hits from the interior. I think he's a sneaky, affordable interior defensive lineman. And then I also wouldn't mind, look, if you strike out on getting a true, like, every down starter, go get Calais Campbell because he is still elite against the run. So you want to address shutting down the run on first and second down, go get Calais Campbell and then surround him with some pass rushing specialists that are cheaper. If you want to go the cheap route, I would be all for doing that. I think there are options on the interior defensive line that are affordable. I mean, those guys, DJ Jones signed for $10 million last time. He's 30 now, and he's probably going to have around the same value, though, because he's been an every down starter now. You got BJ Hill. He's projected to be around the same. The Osa from the Cowboys is projected to be maybe slightly less unless there becomes a bidding war because he's only 26. Calais Campbell obviously would come pretty cheap, right? So this isn't breaking the bank.
Osa Odigizua is the Cowboys defensive tackle. The problem is, how many of these guys are the 49ers going to get into a bidding war to win?
Right.
That's the question. And
the only one I would get a bidding war is this guy. I would be willing to pay him more than any of the others because he is 26. He's ascending, and I think he is a difference maker as a pass rusher.
Yeah, part of this is if you're Saleh, like, you've got to give Shanahan and the Niners a priority list of, okay, we need defensive linemen, linebackers, safety. But if we can only get one or two of these, this is the priority in which I need them. And I agree. Defensive tackle is number one with a bullet, like not even close to anything else being as big a need. You have to have that if you're the 49ers. But that is a tall order. And I saw this tweet from our friend Al Sacco, and this one, it made me worry a little bit, to be honest with you, because I think this is something that doesn't get talked about nearly as much as the Trey Lance stuff or the draft stuff. And Al wrote, notable free agents the Niners have brought in the past 2 years. 2023, Javon Hargrave, miss. Isaiah Oliver, miss. 2024, Devondre Campbell, huge miss. Malik Collins was a trade. Yeah, okay. Yetur Gross-Matos, kind of a miss. Leonard Floyd was okay. But Rock Yassin, Isaac Yiadom, duds.
Well, almost all those, I'm okay with the Rock Yassin and the even Isaiah Oliver to an extent because he didn't spend big money, right? It's missing on the big money ones that were the problem. It's the Hargrave and the trade for Collins, although they didn't spend a ton to get him, but they did account for $10 million on the cap. And obviously, while he wasn't bad, he didn't account for enough.
The Isaiah Oliver, Isaac Yiadom thing, it didn't cost you much, but they cost you on the field. They hurt you.
That's my concern. And I think that's what you're getting at bigger. It's not that they've missed. It's that they really haven't tried to spend there. Hargrave is the only one that they've truly went out in free agency and said, we are getting this guy. And they spent near top of the market to get him. All the other ones were, oh, hey, nobody really wants this guy. Okay, we'll take him. Same with Devondre Campbell. He was literally, nobody expected him. It was Devondre Campbell was he was once good. Let's see what's left. The problem is the 49ers said, well, he was once good. Let's count on it.
Well, and he wasn't the 49ers' first choice. Remember,
right.
They got Eric Kendricks, and then he went back and signed with the Cowboys. So Campbell was clearly a backup option for the 49ers. But for as much as we talk about the draft misses and all the third round picks and all that stuff, and that's all fair, they really have kind of missed on free agency. And that compounds the issue. Because I always say where you miss in the draft, you pay in free agency. But then if you pay in free agency and you still miss again, that's how you get bad.
Yeah, that is the problem. And I think they are set up this year to be able to fix it because they do have the cap space. I'm not saying spend all that cap space, right? You want to roll over some, but they do have the ability to spend and get solid defensive starters that you know you can count on. A linebacker, there's obviously Greenlaw out there, but there's also Nick Bolton. I wouldn't mind bringing in Bobby Wagner for a year or two. I wouldn't mind Ernest Jones as a free agent. Those are guys that you know that can come in and be a starter and be at the very least passable, which is what the problem was last year. The Achilles heel of this defense was the second linebacker wasn't passable. If they had even an average linebacker as that second linebacker this past year, this defense was probably top 5. Like, it was literally Devondre Campbell getting picked on over and over and over.
Well, that's the question. One of the questions with Robert Saleh. Can you make D. Winters a league average linebacker? That would be a huge boost, because if you can, then you don't have to spend any resources to go out, and that's one starter you can scratch off the list, right? And that would be a massive, massive thing. Now, can he? I don't know. I have no idea. But if he can, that would go so much farther to fixing this defense than bringing somebody else in, because now you've saved all that money, you've saved that draft pick, and you can invest that somewhere else.
But I'm not counting on that. That's the problem. Look, injuries are going to happen. You need 3 solid linebackers. So even if you think Winters will be one of the top 3, we can develop him, you still need to go out and get a starting caliber linebacker. You cannot count on, especially with D. Winters' injury history.
I know. The guy can't play 4 snaps without having to come off the field, even if he comes back in the game. If you're wondering, Robert Saleh may have given us a hint as to how exactly he will fix this defense, and it's something I dug up from his final press conference as Niners defensive coordinator way back in 2020. Here's Robert Saleh.
I feel like the system is kind of...
Oops, sorry, wrong one. Here's Robert Saleh.
You go back and study, and you just want to see what teams were attacking throughout the year and which hole you can close. And by adding to the system without overloading the players, that's always the key, is how much more can you do without putting too much on the players' plate, so they can continue to play as fast as possible, as instinctively as possible, and with no gray area. And so that'll always be the challenge. And so we're always going to try to evolve the system and make it and set it up in a way where our players can play extremely fast, but at the same time making coordinators have to work extremely hard to call the perfect play. And then obviously teams on the opposite precision standpoint at their highest level. And that will always be the goal.
So that's how Robert Saleh is planning on, teaching this defense, fixing this defense. And he's going to have to teach it, Levin, because there's only 3 guys that were here when he was here: Warner, Bosa, and Dre Greenlaw. So, yeah, he's going to have to teach it.
Greenlaw's not here as of now.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I do think it's very likely he's brought back, which still, that's the issue I have. If you bring Greenlaw back and you say, well, D. Winters is the 3rd, that's a lot of risk for injury.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like, to me, even if you get Greenlaw back, I'm still wanting to go spend some money. Maybe not top of the market, not the guys I named like Nick Bolton and Ernest Jones, but you still need to go get somebody that could play some snaps if something happens to one of them.
There was a good, I can't find it now, and I'm really annoyed because I should have saved it when I saw it this morning. But there was a good list of Jets free agents and people that could come over with Saleh, because like any defensive coordinator that changes teams, you like to bring in some of the guys that know your system already, because they can help the other guys spread it in the locker room. Now, of course, I can't find the list. I'm so
Hassan Reddick.
Hassan Reddick.
I'm joking. I have no interest in that guy.
Solomon Thomas, DJ Reed, obviously. There was another name. Ashton Davis is a special teams guy that they might be able to bring over too. But that would be a huge boost. And what a sell job you could do if you're Saleh. Like, hey, you guys busted your ass and the offense screwed it all up with the Jets. And it was all for nothing. Come with me to San Francisco now. We'll do exactly what you know you can do, exactly what you know I can do. And we got the offense now to back it up. And you're going to, your effort is not going to be wasted. That would be my pitch if I was Robert Saleh.
And the DJ Reed would make a lot of sense. He's a slot corner. He's a good slot corner. It frees Lenore up to be the true number 1 outside. And you have to think that he is a big Saleh fan, because he was here with Saleh and the 49ers. Wasn't given enough of an opportunity, to be frank. They kept moving him back and forth between safety and corner. Went to Seattle, emerged, chose to go to the Jets and be with Saleh again. So if you're somebody that is thinking that why would he come back to the 49ers? They kind of screwed up the beginning of his career. Well, he was willing to go to Saleh. So clearly he doesn't hold a grudge against Saleh. Now, whether or not he holds a grudge against Shanahan or something, I don't know. I don't know the reason that he didn't get to play here, but then suddenly became somebody that Saleh wanted in free agency.
And I hope that they can lure a couple of these players over too, because again, and Shanahan has talked about this, what they accomplish or don't accomplish in free agency, I think is going to impact what they do in the draft. They can try to deny it, but I think it's clear that there's an impact, especially if you're the 49ers and you're like, hey, we might only have this guy for a year. Are you drafting developmental guy that might take 2 or 3 years down the road on defense? Or are you drafting a guy you think might have more of an impact this year if you have a particular hole that you still have left after free agency?
Now, there are 2 positions that I still want to get to. One of them is where I would spend the most money, and you might not want to because of Leonard Floyd existing. I would spend the most money at edge, and I think there's 2 routes to go here, one of which I have a small preference for, but I'm okay with either. You can go and get the young, emerging, expensive guy like Josh Sweat coming out of Philly, right? Or you can get the old guy, and this is the preference I have. Go get the old guy who in a year or 2 will be going to retirement. And thus, when Purdy's contract becomes uber expensive, you free up a bunch of money. And that would be Khalil Mack. I would go get him. It can be like a Von Miller type of deal in Buffalo, 2 to 3 years. Khalil Mack wants to chase a championship at this point. He's getting towards the end of his career, but he still is an elite pass rusher. He's not very good against the run, but he's still elite pass rusher. He had, I think, 8 sacks this year, 17 the year before that. I would go spend the money to get Khalil Mack. It's not going to be top of the market anymore, but it's still going to be expensive. Probably 10 to 15 million a year would be my guess. I would be willing to spend that to get somebody that is a speed pass rusher to go opposite of Nick Bosa.
You can't have enough good pass rushers. So, you could say, well, Leonard Floyd is here. Great. Keep him. There's never been a team in NFL history that's like, you know what? I don't know what we're going to do. We got too many guys that rush the pass. You can't have enough. Period. End of story.
Right. Bosa's big enough, and they have done this a little bit in the past. You could slide Bosa to the interior on 3rd and longs where they're passing. Have Nick Bosa be a pass rushing defensive tackle. They have lined him up there, not a lot, but in the past they have. And you have Khalil Mack and you have Leonard Floyd as your outside pass rushers. That would be a thing to be able to rotate and have all 3 of them on the field at the same time to get them some snaps.
Nick Ellert says Azeez Ojulari is less expensive and younger. I would love Azeez Ojulari. Again, pick him up.
I'm not sure he would be less expensive. We'll see.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
I think he's the one that's probably going to have a bidding war.
We'll see who they can get, but I totally agree with you. Keep adding on. Keep adding on. The whole defense is set to be rush with 4, cover with 7. So you got to get at least 4. You probably need 4 good ones, and then you need 2 or 3 just depth pieces in the back. That's why a lot of people are saying somebody like a Solomon Thomas, because he's not going to be expensive and he can be a depth piece. It's different. Solomon Thomas, number 3 pick in the draft, is different from Solomon Thomas, come be a backup defensive lineman at a backup defensive lineman contract.
That is true. You need, in my opinion, in today's NFL, with how many passes there are, you need 6 solid defensive linemen. It's easier said than done, but I think you need 4 that are, like you said, they're good starting caliber, but you need 2 rotational pieces that are dominant at one aspect, right? They're not a starter because they're terrible against the run, but they're really good against the pass, or vice versa. You need some depth that have specialties, right? That's what I think is lacking right now. Not only is the starting interior defensive line not good enough, but they also this past year lacked the depth of guys that had specialties to them, where they could come in specific situations and be elite in that situation. It was a whole bunch of, well, these guys can somewhat kind of hold up playing most of the snaps.
So we'll continue to keep an eye on the defense. Obviously, I can't wait for Robert Saleh's first press conference. Jeff Ulbrich, actually, this is a tweet I did save, as a matter of fact. Jeff Ulbrich was talking, I think it was just a Falcons. I don't think it was a press conference. I think it was like an Atlanta Falcons just interview that he did. But he was asked about, his time away from the team, and now he's back, and the difference in him. And I really liked his answer, and I thought this was really interesting. Let me play this for you.
Ultimately, whatever I say is going to be words, and we gotta go out there and we gotta demonstrate who we are and what we're going to be about. I'd say that myself and Raheem both, that time that we left was so critical, and in that time there was so much growth. I am not the same coach that I was 4 years, not even close. And I'm not just talking scheme. I'm talking about the way to build a defensive roster, the way to select players, the way to develop players, the way, and scheme too. I would like for them to know that it's a different human being. It really is in a lot of ways. Like some of my base fundamentals and the principles in which I live by and coach by are still strong and are the same in some ways, but there's been so much growth in so many other ways that guys like AJ.
So you get the point. Basically what he's saying is, I'm different than I was the last time I was here, and he was the interim head coach. Robert Saleh, spent years as a head coach. So I would be fascinated to learn from him and hear Saleh talk about how he's grown, how he's changed since being a head coach and now being back in San Francisco.
Yeah, there's got to be change there because you can't be the same thing that you were. That's what the NFL is all about. You have to be willing to evolve. Some things stay true for years, but eventually everything changes. That's the big gripe I think both of us have with Shanahan right now. He hasn't evolved the offense. He's still running an offense from 2019.
I don't agree with you on that at all. I completely disagree. I think that Shanahan has evolved the offense and has shown a willingness to evolve the offense. When they got Trey Lance, they started running on quarterback keepers and a lot more.
And then he stopped, and we haven't seen it since.
Oh, because Trey Lance got hurt. But
no, because he listened to veterans who said, don't do that.
But the offense did change. When they got Christian McCaffrey, they started chucking the ball to the running back and putting the running back in the slot way more than they ever did before Christian.
But they still ran the same plays. They just had the running back running some routes.
I don't think
the running back was subbing for a different wide receiver. That's what happened. It's still the same plays.
I disagree with that. I think we've seen him evolve the offense. Now, is there still more things he could do? 100%. But I don't think he's running exactly the same plays from 2019. To that end, our friend, your buddy, your dream interview, Steve Young, was on 95.7 The Game talking about this very subject. Here's Steve Young's play calling advice for Kyle Shanahan.
I think Kyle should call RPOs for Brock. We should put him on the run out of the huddle where he's going to carry it. The threat that he needs to bring, look, we understand the processing power, but that's the game today is there's free first downs with the legs, free touchdowns, and especially in the fourth quarter. So I would like to extend what we saw a little bit more as a nifty Brock Purdy this year. I thought it was cool. I thought it really mattered, but I'd like to see more of it.
What's your reaction to that?
Either a guy can stay healthy or he can't. If you are scared to call a quarterback run because the quarterback might get hurt, then he's not the guy. Because if he can't stay healthy, he's not the guy. If Lamar Jackson can do it, Josh Allen can do it. I mean, you can run quarterbacks and keep them healthy. It doesn't mean they get 20 carries. You're not talking Lamar Jackson level. Mm-hmm. You're not talking Josh Allen go into that scrum because you're 6'5" and bigger than anybody else that's in that scrum. No, but you can run him, 3-4 plays a game, RPOs to keep a defense having to account for it. And if you're so scared to do that because you think he might get hurt, then find a different quarterback.
The threat of the quarterback running is really that's all you're trying to create with those RPOs is just to put it in the defense's head. And by the way, the times when Brock has gotten hurt, he's been in the pocket. It's not when Brock has run. It's been in this idea that quarterbacks only get hurt when they run is incorrect. They get hurt in the pocket as well. It's happened to Brock Purdy twice. So let's just get over that. And just because you run an RPO, like you said, doesn't mean he's putting his head down and charging directly into 3 defenders. If you do it right, you really shouldn't be in much danger at all, quite honestly, because if Brock is running the ball on the RPO, it's because there's nobody there and he's got room to run. It shouldn't be, well, Brock's holding the ball, and now he's got to juke 3 defenders out of the way like that. No, if he's doing it that way, he's doing it wrong.
Right. You hand the ball off to the running back every time unless you see broad daylight in front of you as the quarterback.
And especially I think they can do it and should do it in the red zone, where they've had such trouble, at least last year anyway. They were so dismal in the red zone. Having that extra threat, that extra dimension in that part of the field, I feel like helps neutralize the advantage the defense has when they get there, because the closer you get to the end zone, the easier it is for the defense to defend because the field shrinks. Well, if you have Brock with the RPO and with the ability for some designed run plays, not scrambles, I'm talking about designed runs, it's going to open other things up for the defense. I swear to God, it will, because we've seen other teams do it.
You know how to open up more holes in the defense?
Get a better offensive line.
Yeah, and it starts, I've seen multiple comments of him. I've had him written down on my list of, he is the guy in free agency. I don't care the cost. I would spend it. He's the one guy. I had all these defensive players, but they're all players that if you want too much, you can go over there. I'm going to go find a different guy. The one guy that I would spend, and he is almost definitely going to reset the market for his position, is Drew Dahlman, the center. Why? Because he's the absolute perfect fit. He's run outside zone. That is where his experience is. And he is rated by multiple places, PFF and others, as top 3 run blocking centers in the NFL. So he fits the scheme perfectly. He has a ton of experience running it, and he's elite at the thing that Kyle wants him to be elite at. Go spend the money that it's going to take. And like I said, he's a well-known quantity at this point. He's probably going to reset the center market because it hasn't been reset since Creed Humphrey a couple years ago.
So clearly you didn't listen to Bully Ball with me and Jason Aponte yesterday, because he literally brought up that exact thing. His article is on Niners Nation right now, which you can see if you're watching the stream. He had the exact same thought. Drew Dahlman at center. We know how important center is to this offense, not only for the running game, but for the pass protection. They're the person that calls out the pass protections. So you can't have some stiff in there. You need the mental side of the game as much as the physical side of the game. And it's very unlikely, I would say almost impossible, because of that, for the Niners to draft a rookie center this year and say, okay, you're going to be the starter day one. Because that's so much to put on a guy as a rookie who's got to adjust just in general to the physicality of the NFL. And then, oh, by the way, call out all the protections. It's not going to happen. So if you want to improve that position, you're going to have to get a veteran in free agency. And that's what Drew Dahlman is. And by the way, 49ers legacy, right? Some 49er fans are old enough to remember his dad playing for the 49ers.
That Jason guy's pretty smart. You should have him run this network instead of you.
Well, that may happen.
No, I did not get a chance to listen to Bully Ball. My bad. I was working nights. I got up a few hours ago. So I have not had time to listen to things from yesterday. But I 100% agree. That is the guy. I don't care what the cost is. You reset the market for.
And the Niners have shown a willingness to spend at that exact position in their history. Remember the Weston Richburg contract? They paid him big money, and he was playing well. It was a good idea. He suffered 2 horrible injuries that basically ended his career, but it was worth it. And the offense was functioning at a high level. Then they went out and got Alex Mack. They invested. They went out and had targeted people that they wanted to bring in at the position because they recognized the importance of it. I don't know why they've tried to go bargain basement shopping recently here at that spot, but it's got to change. I completely agree. Daza0187 says, for all the defense talk, look at how good the offensive lines are for the top teams in the league. Well, I think we're all on board for adding to the offensive line. I mean, the only people that seem to have any resistance to it, unfortunately, are those in the 49ers organization.
I think the only question there is, do you go out and spend the money to get 1 starter or 2 starters? Because the guard free agent depth is insane this year. There's like 10 legitimate starters from guard that are free agents. The tackles also have a good bit of depth, although a lot of them are left tackles, but maybe you could get one on the cheap that would be willing to slide over to right tackle. I mean, you got so many. You got even like a Mekhi Becton, who has transformed his career by going to a offensive line school and learning how to become a guard. He was a good guard this past season after failing as a tackle. Like, There's a lot of free agent depth at guard and tackle. There's not free agent depth at center. Dahlman is the guy you have to go out and get.
Which is good for him because he's going to get paid. Well, just like we were talking about with D Winters on the defensive side of the ball, can the 49ers find a solution in-house for one of the offensive line spots, particularly guard? Because I'm going to assume Aaron Banks is not coming back. Can Ben Barch or Spencer Burford or Nick Zakelj, can one of those guys be a starter for you at left guard? You're convinced the answer is no. I mean, Barch looked decent last
I'm
year.
convinced you don't count on that. That if there's an injury, maybe they get the chance to prove it. But I'm not going into the season counting on somebody emerging that's been here for multiple years already. No, thank you. They've tried that. It didn't work. I am getting the center in free agency. I am signing a guard in free agency. And I am drafting a tackle at the top of the draft that competes with McKivitz for the starting gig. And if he doesn't win the starting gig, you've got a top backup that eventually will slide over to left tackle to replace Trent Williams. That's what I want.
And that's a big theme that Michelle Majuk, who hosts with me on Fridays and also hosts a Bleacher Report with me twice a week, including tonight, by the way, 6 p.m. Pacific time. That's been a big theme for her is competition. Like, don't just sit back and say, well, hopefully Burford or Zakelj or Barch can be it. Sign somebody and then let them compete and may the best man win.
Yeah, it's you can't go into the season like you did this past year. This past year would have been even more of a train wreck if they didn't have Pooney. And why did Pooney get a chance? Because of injuries. There are literally quotes out there where they were like, oh, yeah, we didn't expect him to be a day one starter, but he really took that job and just owned it. It's like, okay, so you didn't even know you had him when you drafted him.
100%.
Like, you cannot count on your draft evaluations because one, they've sucked so far, except for the Pooney one. And two, you don't even know it when they're in-house already. So cover your bases, go get guys in free agency and draft guys so that you're covered.
That's my thing. It's like, you never would have had Pooney see the light of day. I don't like the assumption from the 49ers that all rookies can't play early and none of them are ready. It's like, no, just give people a chance and they'll tell you. You'll see quickly if they're ready. Sometimes I feel like the Niners don't even give those guys a chance to make an impression, which is so frustrating. And a circumstance, I think, worked in the Niners' favor to push Pooney to the starting lineup. And now he's your guy. Like, lock it down. He's your guy. You have filled that spot for the next, 3 years, whatever it is. It's just, you would miss out on that if those injuries didn't happen. So that should teach you something about how you approach these rookies. Every other team gets contributions from rookies that they put in and let them start right away. There's no reason the Niners can't.
Would Malik Mustafa have gotten a chance if there weren't injuries? Probably not.
Malik Mustafa?
Malik Mustafa, not Malik. Jeez.
I love making fun of your mispronunciations. It's like my favorite pastime. I was looking back just to do this at the Niners free agent signings year by year. And I was like, oh, they signed a corner that was a first round pick that had a lot of injuries in his career. What was his name again, Levin? Jason?
I don't remember. Oh, Verrett.
Yeah, there it is.
Verrett.
You always called him Jason Verrett. It always made me laugh. But yeah, they got to play the rookies right away. Kurt the Chameleon says we need 3 more Poonies. That was a soundbite from Steph Sanchez, who was like, we got to find more Poonies. I was like, Steph, I don't think you realize how that sounds. By the way, Steph is killing it at the Senior Bowl this week. Definitely check her workout at Steph49K on YouTube. You can follow on Twitter as well. She's interviewing 49ers coaches, and she's getting video from all the practices there. So she is absolutely crushing it for us. So thank you, Steph. Kurt the Chameleon also points out, is Trent Williams going to be healthy? That's always my question. That's a completely fair question. He hasn't played a full season in forever, and now he suffered an ankle injury last year that just refused to heal.
That's one reason why I want the first-round pick to be a tackle, because he can compete, like I said, with McKivitz. If he beats out McKivitz, he's your right tackle. If there's an injury to Trent Williams, I don't know how good McKivitz would be sliding over to left tackle. Same as I don't know who the rookie is, but whichever one of them can slide over to left tackle best, you have McKivitz being inserted to your lineup, or you have your rookie first-round pick being inserted to your lineup when Williams goes down. That's about as good of a backup situation at offensive tackle as you can get.
Yeah, I'm down with that. You're saying a lot of things that I support. I don't like it on today's show. What the hell's going on with you?
Well, this is my jam. It's money and numbers.
That's true. You are a numbers guy. Speaking of numbers, by the way, I haven't actually checked. Do you know the spread on the Super Bowl?
I actually don't.
I haven't. I've been focused so much on like.
I think I saw like very early, right after the games, it was like 3.5.
Okay, well, I'm just checking now. It is definitely lower than that. If you look on the BetUS website, Kansas City is favored by 1.5 points in the game. How could they not be favored? They're the two-time defending Super Bowl champs, and they've basically lost one game they cared about all year. Like, sometimes I think we get so mad at the fact that the Chiefs are here that we don't see the history that they are about to make. Like, they are back-to-back defending Super Bowl champ, the only back-to-back champion to ever get back to a Super Bowl, and they've lost one real game all season long. We should be talking about this team as arguably the greatest ever, this dynasty as one of the greatest ever.
I think it will get there. This year is weird, though. I think that's what's really curbed that talk is the fact that every single week it looks like Kansas City escapes to get a victory, right? Like everybody thinks, oh, they're about to lose. It's a close game and they're down, and then they get the last points to end up getting the win. And so the narrative coming out of their games is, ooh, they barely got it done again, rather than having normal victories of 10 plus points where you get to talk about how great they were. And I think that's what affects the spread this time is the fact that Kansas City's been barely winning. They have not been dominant at any point this season, other than when they played the 49ers. And then there's Philly, which has been dominant and has been peaking right now, right? Philly is better right now than they were at any point during the regular season, I would argue. So that's playing a role in this line of Kansas City doesn't look good. They just keep barely winning while Philly is dominating.
But it's not November anymore. I feel like that line with the Chiefs of like, oh, they can't keep pulling out these one-score games. They probably should have lost that one. That's fine to say in November. It's going to be February by the time they play this game. Like, what are we going to be sitting here when they're holding up the trophy for a third straight year being like, yeah, they can't keep getting away with it. Like, who cares? You win by 1, you win by 100. They win, and they do it relentlessly.
Let me take a different angle. They win barely. So should the spread not also be very close because they barely win all their games? Wouldn't that make a realistic spread?
Yeah, but I still think also, all the Super Bowl experience they have, I mean, Andy Reid is in Super Bowl, like what, 7? I don't even know off the top of my head. He's got 4 with the Chiefs. I know he made 1 with the Eagles, so it's at 5. I mean, Mahomes obviously is they're so used to this. It's not even, none of that stuff is going to phase them. I do think that's a real thing. Regardless of who you want to bet on, by the way, do it with BetUS. You can receive 150% on your first deposit and 125% on your second and third deposit up to $2,000 with code YouTube150. And remember, with BetUS, you get fast and easy deposit and withdrawals, 24/7 personalized service every single day of the year. You need help anytime, they are there for you. So thank you to BetUS again for sponsoring this video. Did you see what Deebo said about the Super Bowl? He said he's rooting for Philly because he's mad at the Chiefs, obviously, for the 2 Super Bowl losses, but also because he's friends with A.J. Brown, which I forgot about. And so I kind of understood that from Deebo.
Yeah, same draft class there. Yeah, I mean, it's the rivalry with Philly had to do with the Niners being bitter with the injury causing it and Philly refusing to hear any part of that. But it's, I think everybody that does not have an address that resides in Kansas City is rooting for Philly.
Andre says Deebo should root for himself to play better. Well done, Andre.
Maybe Deebo's setting himself up to be able to go to Philly next year.
Hey, yeah. The Unfaithful Perspective, thanks for the super chat, says Kyle and John built one great roster. I seriously wonder if they can do it again consistently, like, say, the Eagles do. I mean, how many great rosters did you expect them to build? That would be like you say, one great roster, like, well, they haven't, like they built a roster that was great for half a decade. Now they got to do it again.
Yeah. Well, I think the better way to put this is Kyle and John were able to rebuild a team. Are they able to retool a team? Because rebuilding a team is different. You come in, the team sucks, you know it sucks. You bring in all your guys, right? That succeeded. Now, are you willing to look at your guys and say you're not good enough anymore and move on? That's where we're at. Are they capable of looking at guys that were their guys and saying you're no longer my guy?
Agreed. And it's a separate skill. Like, that's not an easy thing to be able to do. We're not, and I assume when you say this, you're not talking about guys like Mike McGlinchey, right? Who they clearly they told Mike McGlinchey a year ahead of time going into his last year, like, hey, we're probably not going to re-sign you. Like, that's one thing. But the guys like Deebo that you love, that were part of a very successful team, the guys like Juice, the guys like Eric Armstead, frankly, he was part of that. Eric Armstead was a really well-liked player within this organization through multiple coaching regimes. Now they let Armstead go. So that maybe is
with a caveat, though.
Well, they didn't offer him.
Right. They said, hey, we still want to keep you around. We just can't pay you what you're going to be getting paid. And he said, I would rather be a free agent. You know what I mean? So that one, I think, doesn't really count because the Niners said, we need to pay you less, but we still want to keep you around. You're still our guy.
But would you have been mad if they kept Eric Armstead around at a much reduced contract? I would not have been.
No. But you know what I mean? Like, you got to be willing to cut the cord. Deebo is the obvious one this year. You got to be willing to cut that cord because, one, you got to be able to look ahead and predict the future. We know Deebo is an outspoken person. You know Deebo has some diva in him where he wants the ball. Is he going to get the ball enough? No, probably not, because you have Christian McCaffrey coming back. You have Brandon Ayuk coming back. You have Pearsall, who you drafted in the first round, who emerged at the end of the season. You had Juan Jennings, who emerged as a true starting caliber wide receiver during the chances that he got because of injuries. Deebo is looking at maybe being the fourth option in this offense when it comes to just the passing game. I'm not even counting the, obvious preference to run the ball from Kyle Shanahan. I'm talking about just as a pass catcher, he might be the fourth option. Is he going to be willing to accept that? I seriously doubt Deebo would keep his mouth shut being the fourth option and getting 2 to 3 catches a game. I don't think he's somebody that's willing to accept that at this point in his career. You have to be willing to look ahead and predict that future. And if you're looking ahead and saying, well, no, he's still going to be the key guy in our offense that we want to use a lot, then you can't. You're failing at what we just talked about. You can't look at a guy and say, you're no longer my guy. You're not capable of seeing that. So either way, you would fail that evaluation. The only way you don't fail this evaluation is by letting Deebo go, whether through a post-June 1st trade or a post-June 1st cut if you can't find a trade. Because if you do post-June on either one of those, you save over $5 million in cap space. It still has a pretty heavy dead cap hit, but you save $5 million at the end of the day. And you got to be looking at it as there is no scenario that we hold on to Deebo and it works out.
Deebo complained about touches when he was getting the exact same amount of touches that he always got.
When he was dropping the ball left and right, he complained.
Right. Like, so it's not even, he didn't even complain when his role was reduced because the role wasn't reduced. He was still getting the touches that he always got. And he complained last year and he wasn't as good. 13.1 yards per reception last year for Deebo Samuel, his lowest since 2022. His usefulness is narrowing year by year. Now it's basically, screen passes and kick returns. And that's pretty much it. You play man coverage on Deebo, even with linebackers, and you lock him up. Like, I just don't see it, but I think that they're going to keep him around. I think they're going to keep Juice around. Now, they might ask Juice to take another pay cut, and we'll see. But I think both of those guys are going to be back. And I didn't think that at one point this year. And Grant kind of said to me, like, are you out of your mind? They're definitely going to keep both of those guys. And I feel like he's probably right.
I think they probably do end up keeping both of those guys. The restructuring of Deebo tipped the hand because they could have saved, I think it was, if memory serves, $12 million, but then they restructured him and now they can only save $5 million. I don't think it ends up working out because, like I said, either he sticks around and he's not going to be the focal point anymore, and I don't think he's willing to accept it, or you don't have him stick around. Like, those are the two things. You keep him around, he's not going to be the focal point anymore. Arguably won't even be in the top 3. So how does that work for you?
Let's get to this comment from Jan, who says, "You ungrateful bleeps. I hope Deebo has a career year and shuts you all up." First of all, ungrateful. What are you talking about? Ungrateful. Deebo Samuel was paid by the organization to perform. No one
He's
was
talking about us.
Yeah. Okay. What? Deebo Samuel, I didn't make Deebo Samuel play the way he's played these past. It's not my fault. I'm just telling you how he played. The games are on TV. We all see the games. What am I supposed to let Deebo Samuel play forever because he was good in 2021? Like, I don't understand.
That's my gripe. He had a career year. That's all his career has been, is a career year. He literally has 1 year with 1,000 yards. He signed his contract 3 seasons ago. He hasn't had 1,000 yards since. I'm sorry. You got your money. You have not lived up to it, but you got your money. It's time to move on. You are not worth paying anymore. Your career is one of a single outlier, crazy good year that came in a contract year.
I mean, the numbers are what they are. 51 catches for 670 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns last year. That's it.
He has
One
22 total in 6 years.
Like, what are we scared of losing? That's the thing. You think Ricky Pearsall can't put up 670 yards and 3 touchdowns last year or next year? He had 3 touchdowns this year and he got shot before the season started. Like, you really think you can't replace that production from Deebo Samuel?
Let me put it this way. Outside of the one career year in 2021, he averages less than 700 yards receiving a season. 700. He can't even average that. That's insane. Like, the guy, I don't understand the loyalty to him, because pretty much any other player in NFL history for any team that got paid huge money and then immediately sucked afterwards becomes somebody that the fans despise, right? I'm not saying you have to despise him, but you should be saying, yeah, it's time to move on from him. The guy was paid at the top of the market, and he has averaged, since signing that contract, just at 700 yards. Like, what other player in NFL history got paid top of the market and ended up producing well below average results, and people still go, how dare you criticize him?
Like Jan says, who cares about 1,000 yards? Deebo wins games. Which game? Which game did Deebo Samuel help him win last year? You want to say the Philly game in 2023? Okay. What did he do in the other games? And last year, please tell me the game that Deebo Samuel won last year. I'd love
I can name one that he lost.
Right. Exactly. So even if he's got one that he won, he's even the scales there. So I don't get the loyalty. I'll never forget being on 95.7 The Game with the Morning Roast guys and them saying Deebo Samuel's an all-time 49er. And I remember saying, what? Like, we got into it on the air. I was like, get the hell out of here. I am sorry. That is not the case for me. Although I do think he'll be back next year. Chris Waddell says, just stop by to say, hey guys, heavily invest in both lines, plug in some roll spots, and we'll be fine next year. Please don't rest the market with Purdy. Don't set the market, I think he meant to say, with Purdy. 4 years, 45 to 48 million with an out after year 3. See ya. Thank you, Chris. I do appreciate that. One thing I want to get to, because I did tease it at the top, and I'm trying to be better about doing the stuff I actually tease. The tweet from Grant that kind of sparked some controversy online. He tweeted out, Kyle Juszczyk is more of an H-back than a fullback because he's not a real threat to run the ball. It'd be cool if the Niners' next fullback actually was a rushing threat like Rathman and William Floyd. And whenever I hear the name William Floyd, I always have to point out, William Floyd was a first-round draft pick in 1994. The Niners had lost 2 straight games to the NFC championships to the Cowboys. They had a first-round pick, 28 overall, and they took a fullback. The 46th overall pick in that draft, by the way, was Hall of Famer Larry Allen. And this isn't a William Floyd sucked tweet. He was really good as a fullback before he hurt his knee. But it's just...
He was even better in Tecmo Bowl.
They took a fullback in the first round. Nobody said anything. It's just crazy that occurred.
The NFL has changed, put it that way.
Yes.
And it changed shortly after that, too. In the 90s and early 2000s, were fullbacks still heavily utilized? Yes, but did they become, well, we can convert this guy because he has just enough speed and he's capable of going in and blowing up a hole? That's what became of the fullback. And then it became, all right, they changed rules. It's time to be pass happy. It's time to spread the defense out similar to college and run a different style of offense in the fullback dive.
And Grant responded to my tweet by pointing out that while Larry Allen was obviously a Hall of Famer, Floyd was awesome. He had 47 catches in 8 games in 1995. He was actually leading the NFL in catches that year as a fullback when he got hurt. Just a crazy, crazy thing. I love William Floyd, bar none. Fantastic fullback. I'm always amazed that he was picked in the first round. People lost their mind about Moody in the third, which I understand. Imagine if the Niners, with the 11th overall pick, the San Francisco 49ers fullback, whoever, John Jonerson. People's heads would explode.
Yeah, like I said, it's changed. Fullbacks back then were utilized not just in the run game, as you saw with Floyd catching the ball. I mean, Jim Brown, everybody says, is right there as one of the best running backs in the league history. Technically, he was a fullback.
Yeah, that is true. So anyway, that was just a fun little thing. And then people started telling me how good William Floyd was. And I was like, guys, I get it. It's just crazy to me that where he went in the draft. Anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Got some fun things happening this week. Johnny Dells is going to join me tomorrow. Tomorrow night, we're going to do a film breakdown of Robert Saleh's defense, what we can expect, things to watch for. I'm really excited about that. There's a new Joe Montana documentary out from NFL Films. We're going to talk to the producer of that this week as well. So we got some big things coming. Please give us a like and a subscribe. I hope that you do. Thank you, Levin. Thank you once again to BetUS for sponsoring this video. If you want to sign up for BetUS, use promo code YouTube150. How you adjust into the show on Wednesdays?
I don't have a regular schedule, so it doesn't change anything for me. Working a rotational schedule, no one day of the week means anything different than the other.
All right, then. As usual, Levin, I just feel like you ended the show on a downer.
I'm just saying, like, a Tuesday to me is the same as a Wednesday is, as a Thursday is, because I work a rotational schedule. So every single week is different for me. Some days I work Monday through Thursday. Some weeks I work Friday through Sunday. That's what a rotational schedule is. It makes what the day of the week is mean nothing. There's only one day of the week that means anything to me, and it's only for 6 months, and that is Sundays during football season. But if you want to end on a happy note, spend some money on the defense, will you, 49ers?